Leo, this is your year. Last month you were challenged. Your ego was getting in the way of things. And I think this month it builds on that. You've certainly been thinking things through in the past. And maybe as a result of that, missing opportunities. The overall energy is that of a new partnership. Could be a new love, but it could well be a new partnership coming into you. Something that feels heaven sent, something that you just feel so comfortable with. Right now, you're feeling a degree of pressure from what you see as dependence or dependencies upon you. You feel that there's things that you have to do. And I don't think it's doing you any good. In the future, you're having nightmares. Is it because you can't fulfill these things that you feel you need to do? You're certainly very determined, maybe obstinate, and things are moving rather slowly. And I think it's because you're somewhat inflexible. Now, what would change everything is if you opened yourself up to the unknown, to the unusual, to different ways of thinking. And this seems strange because you've come such a long way, and I said this last month, Leo, you've come such a long way. This seems odd. But I'm sure you're being called to relax your ideas. And the upshot of you being that little bit rigid is that you're actually constraining yourself. You're constraining what I think could be some wonderful things coming into you, but you're not willing to see them almost. So quite fascinating, Leo, and I'm a Leo. So let's try and unpack this. Now, what dominates this reading, and the energy runs throughout all the other energies, is that of a new partnership, a new divine partnership that you feel so much at home with. Could simply be a friendship, it could be a business partner, but it's most likely love. I'm very reluctant to say that because, you see, I'm a Leo, and I'm very much in love with my wife. And the last thing I'm looking for is to disrupt that relationship. But I have to keep an open mind, given what the cards are saying. And, I'm reading for you, not for me. But yes, this is a new and divine sort of partnership that comes to you. And this dominates this reading. So strange, yeah. In the past, you've been very contemplative. In my case, it's been meditation, but I do tend to overthink everything. I taught business strategy, that's what we do. So you've taken yourself away and been sorting things out. And I think as a result, you've got quite firm ideas. But looking at this spread, I just worry that you've come up with the wrong things. Certainly, as a result of focusing inwards, you're missing some of the opportunities that exist outside. And that would be a theme, I think, of this spread. Certainly now, you're feeling you have dependencies. I mean, the most likely thing in this is a relationship breakup. But, you know, I don't even want to consider it. And that you're left with children that you have to bring up. But it could be just a feeling of responsibility. A feeling that you have to do things in a certain way. And I think that's perhaps more likely that you've been thinking about what you should do, and you feel a sense of responsibility. In my case, it's to humanity, to the world, which is crazy, isn't it? And maybe this reading is telling me, look, you can't do everything, you know. I think you're actually probably doing a very good job of what you're doing, but you don't feel like you are. The feeling I get is that you've backed yourself into something of a corner. That, you know, you've thought deeply and you've thought about what you must do. And that includes this sense of responsibility. And in the future, I think it's going to give you nightmares. How do I discharge of all my responsibilities? How do I do the right thing? Laying awake at night, thinking about it, isn't a good thing, let's face it. So yeah, I do think that you've caused this. It's your own psychology. I don't think it's coming from outside. Now you're a Leo. You're dogged, you're determined, you're reliable, you get the job done. Maybe things are moving a bit slowly. But no, what I read into this is this doggedness, this reliability. Once you agree to do something, you feel an obligation to do it. And I think it's this obligation, this sense of obligation, that's causing these problems, because you can't do all that you've promised that you will do. I think that's it. Yeah. And the universe is really calling you to relax a bit more, to be a bit more open. Well, that's what I think it's saying to us. Now, what would change things is you being much more open to new ideas, much more open to change. And this is going to come as a massive shock to you, Leos, because I know you've changed your ideas so much. And that you do feel fairly open to new things. But I think you've got yourself in this rut of having believed that you've seen what you must do and determined to do it. And as I say, a sense of obligation in doing it. Sense of determination. And you're being called upon to be more flexible. Now, I think we're going to have to wait for next month, because I know this is a wonderful year for you. Should you be being more flexible? Or do you just have to go through the pain that clearly is here this month and into the next month in order to come out with the great things? Is this a test of you? I don't know. The outcome of this determination is self-imposed restrictions. I can understand that. I think I get it. Just as an aside, of course, this reading comes in Ramadan, and I'm a Muslim. And I do restrict myself very much in Ramadan. In fact, I don't do any tarot readings. So all tarot readings during Ramadan I've pre-recorded. But I think this is talking about something more than this. I think this is you're restricting what you are willing to consider, willing to do, willing to think even, because you've developed some quite fixed ideas out of a sense of obligation, I think. But what we need is some clarity. And I think we need some clarity on this card, in fact. Getting clarity on these self-imposed restrictions. Why are they there? Well, the first card we have is the Chariot, sense of direction, moving fast. So it is to do with you having firm ideas. The second card is the Moon, the fear of the unknown. So that is you're believing you must do things in a certain way for fear of change. And the final card is the Queen of Swords. I mean, she's a lovely queen, but she's a queen who sets boundaries. And I think you've set boundaries for yourself. So let's look at these individually. First card of clarity is the Chariot. Sense of balance, sense of direction, sense of purpose, moving quite quickly. And this does sort of fit in with all the other things, isn't it? I think you've dug yourself into this corner because you believe that you have obligations, you believe you must do the right thing, you believe you must do things this way and not that way. And that is actually restricting yourself. And the universe is definitely asking you to be more open. But whether or not long term that's the right thing, I'm not sure. I think it probably is, though, yeah. So the Moon is the fear of the unknown. So I think certain things are off the table for you because you couldn't contemplate that sort of a change. So if you take me, well, you know, I said I couldn't contemplate anyone other than my wife. You know, I love her dearly. And to be honest, I'm stuck with her anyway because I emigrated to Indonesia and my status in Indonesia is dependent on me being married to her. I mean, I suppose I could find another Indonesian woman and marry them, but, you know, I'd start the process again. I've spent a fortune on my residence already. So, you know, it's just not something I'd consider. And if you remember, the first card could be a new love. So maybe, you know, maybe it was about love after all. But maybe it wasn't. But there's certainly a fear of the unknown, which is why you're imposing restrictions on yourself. Final card of clarity is the Queen of Swords. Oh, I did say it was about boundaries, and I think it is. But the other thing we could take from this is that she's firm and fair. So maybe it's you trying to be fair. Hence your feeling of dependencies. And it's that's restricting you. Your fairness, it could be. What I think it is that you've learned to put up boundaries. But some of those boundaries you're imposing on yourself. Whereas the idea of the boundaries is to put them on others so that you don't keep getting exploited. But I think you're putting up boundaries on yourself. So I think we can summarise for you, Leo. Leo, if like me you've been meditating, and as a result I think you've got some very firm ideas of what you want, firm ideas of what you should be, firm ideas of what you should do, firm ideas that you have obligations. But a new person comes into your life. It's most likely love. It could be a partnership, it could be a friendship, but it feels wonderful. It's somebody that you just completely get on with. There's nothing to hide. I mean, most likely it is love. But right now you're feeling you've got many dependencies. Maybe it is your existing love that you feel a responsibility for. I mean, you know, I couldn't see myself falling for somebody else at all. So it'd be an incredible sense of responsibility that I'd feel. You're dogged, you're determined, you're a bit set in your ways and maybe move a little bit slowly as a result. And this sort of sense of obligation, this sense of knowing what you must do, has caused you to restrict what you're doing. Now, the other things that are impacting on that is that there's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear at grasping out to something different. We all have a fear of the unknown, of course, but I think you've got very dogged in your ways. And the other reason why you're putting up these restrictions is, at last you've learned to put up barriers. But some of those barriers you're putting up are barriers on yourself. And now I understand this because I do things in certain ways, dogged ways, yes. There's certain things I do and certain things I won't do. Because I know what sort of a person I am. And so I just, you know, I have to give you an example. I'm very methodical about where I put things because I know that if I don't put them where I usually do, I'll not be able to find them again. Partly my eyesight's not so good, but, you know, that's not the only reason. But I think it's much more than that, you know. So you're restricting yourself. And these restrictions and this sense of obligation will lead to nightmares. How are you going to do everything? And I think this new person that comes into your life has caused this disruption. What would change is being open to new ideas. And you've changed your ideas a lot recently, I do know. But being open to new ideas, new possibilities, new ways of doing things. And that would change everything, Leo.